If ever there was a time to exercise caution and think very carefully before you act or do or say anything, including online, it's now. Because with riots and violent disorder erupting across the country, and with the current government stance on all of this, that being a very firm one, quite rightly, to say that any violence and disorder will be dealt with severely. Now, that is right, because that is not the answer to any of the questions and the arguments that people are putting forward. Violence is never the answer, and riot is never the answer, and so they can and will and rightly should be dealt with appropriately. But with that being the government stance on all of this, if you express your views online or to someone else in the street, or even if you just walk up and get involved somehow, you might also find yourself arrested, charged, prosecuted for public order offences. Now, it is worth bearing in mind that you do not have to physically be at one of these locations to be charged with an offence under the Public Order Act to do with these riots. You can simply be inciting it online, and that could be as simple as encouraging someone else to get involved, encouraging anybody to get involved, because these offences have a provision for incitement. And so if somebody were to take something you said as incitement to be involved in any of these riots or any of this disorder, then you might yourself have a knock at the door from police. Now, that might not be today or tomorrow, because there's no time limit on serious offences. Only for the less serious offences, there's a time limit of 6 months. But if they seek to prosecute you for a serious offence, there is no time limit. And so there will be, quite likely, hundreds, if not thousands of people prosecuted under this legislation for everything that's been going on. And there are some serious offences in the footage that I've seen. Now, I want to address one or two questions and comments that have popped up on my X feed. Lots of people have asked me direct questions: does this or that amount to an offence? Now, I've taken the decision not to answer those questions directly. I can answer questions generally, but if I were to answer a question directly and specifically in relation to one specific person about one specific incident and say whether that is an offence, then that could ultimately be defamatory if it's found to be untrue. And generally speaking, I don't think that is helpful to say that X, Y, or Z person has committed an offence, in my view. I can say generally that somebody running around in the street smashing up a shop window or setting something on fire or attacking somebody or looting a shop, that is where they've identified that there's an opportunity to go and steal something from the shop because of the riots. Now, of course, generally I can say that anyone that is committing those kind of acts will likely be charged and found guilty of an offence. But I'm not going to name and single out any one individual, particularly if they're a well-known person, and I've been asked this a number of times now. But as I say, if ever there was a time to exercise caution, it's now. Because if you express your views online and that comes across as incitement, then you might get a knock at the door with accusations that you've incited something going on outside. But now let's talk about something a little bit more general. Lots of people have said online that these people that are out in the street causing havoc have a right to be angry and a right to have views and oppose government policies on this or that. But let's be equally clear, whilst you do have the right to hold certain views and oppose political policies and such like, and you do to an extent have the right to express those views, that right to express them and manifest those views is curtailed. It's limited in law to be confined within what is lawfully acceptable. With what has been quite prominent in the news recently with Just Stop Oil activists who've discovered that the new legislation to prevent severe disruption with the infrastructure around the UK, they've been handed severe custodial sentences. Because although they say they are committing what they believe to be a peaceful protest, it has caused significant delay and disruption to the infrastructure around the UK. Thus, it's found to be unlawful. Equally, somebody that has a very strong view against political policies on this or that, whatever that view might be and whatever the view might be about, they cannot manifest that view by taking to the streets and smashing things up. That is, firstly, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to improve anything. and it is just not something that is anywhere close to being acceptable in law. There are ways to express your views, and all of those kind of acts are certainly not among them. But I suppose the stark warning for this video is to those few of you that may feel tempted to voice your views online, which might cross the threshold into incitement of all of these kind of acts. And therefore you may unwittingly get roped into this, and you may find yourself being charged with a similar offence. And that, of course, is probably something that you would never dream that you'd be involved in. And that is the case for many people when they are arrested for comments they've made online. Lots of people think that just making a comment online is just a comment online. But in these kind of times, when these kind of acts are happening, and someone is making a comment that could be deemed to be incitement of those kind of acts, then that is something that you need to be very careful of. And so just to say, it is okay if you feel angry about certain things. It is okay if you strongly disagree with certain things that's happening. It is okay if you strongly disagree with certain policies and the way that certain things are handled. You may even strongly disagree with how the Prime Minister has responded to all of this that's going on. All of that aside, before you actually commit those thoughts to the public domain and you make these comments, just bear in mind my warning from this video, that if you do so, they might cross a threshold into incitement, depending on the way that you word that comment. And so be careful that whatever it is that you post online, that you are not supporting, and you make clear that you are not supporting any of these kind of acts, because that at the very least will help to avoid you from getting caught up in all of this. And so my general guidance would be to think very carefully before you post what you post, and think to yourself, is it worth the immediate gratification of posting that thought that you have right now, as against what might become a long drawn out criminal prosecution, regardless of whether you're convicted or acquitted in the very end, all the stress that it might take to go through all of that? Is it worth posting those thoughts just because you're angry about what's going on? I accept that lots of people are angry, and lots of people might feel very justified in being angry. There are quite clearly lots of people disagreeing with each other quite starkly across the country at the moment for issues that have been building for a long time, not just the last 5 minutes, and certainly not for the last month that we've had this new government. Lots of people are disagreeing with the way the new government is handling it, and of course it is their right to disagree with how the government is handling it at the moment. But at the same time, it is not right to take to the streets and to smash things up. That is not the answer, that is not productive, and that is certainly not going to cause any positive change, whether with the policies or otherwise. And so my message here today through this video is to the vast majority of you that are just observing all of this online through videos and social media, and may be tempted to comment. So please do take that as a warning from me to you with all good intentions, and keep yourself safe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.